Hello and welcome. Hollywood's cinema history owes a lot to the talents of universally known Polish-connected filmmakers, including Sam Goldwyn, Roman Polanski, Jack Warner and Max Fleischer, all of whom found their way to the sunny climes of California. Then there were the acclaimed but generally less well-known names like directors Agnieszka Holland, Jerzy Skolimowski, Krzysztof Kieślowski and Krzysztof Zanussi, each of whom have directed many award-winning films. Perhaps one of the best known in the English-speaking world was a 1981 film from Krzysztof Zanussi entitled From a Far Country, John Paul II, about the life of Karol Wojtyła. It starred Sam Neill and Christopher Cazenove. Then in 1984, Krzysztof won the Golden Lion at the Venice Film Festival for the movie A Year of the Quiet Sun, starring Maja Komorowska and US star Scott Wilson, set in post-war 1945 Poland. It's the moving story of how an American soldier helps a local woman as she struggles to rebuild her life. When Krzysztof wrote and directed the film, Poland was still under communist control, while the Solidarity political movement was slowly gathering momentum. I talked to him shortly after the film was released. He spoke about the political climate in Poland and the constraints on the population, but conceded his international recognition afforded him rare concessions that allowed him to leave the country.
You're a very privileged Polish citizen, aren't you?
Enormously privileged. I would always like to make it clear, not to feel denounced. I denounce myself. It is not a rule. It is a life achievement that I gained some privilege that our people don't have. I'm known outside of my country. I have worked outside of my country. I'm known inside of my country, so I'm able to commute and enjoy far more freedom than most people do. And I'm far better off. I'm far better paid than average Pole is. And I may allow myself to be far more outspoken than many people. And I want just to make it clear, because otherwise I give a false testimony that it is all over that well as it is to me. Unfortunately, it isn't.
How do you regard then that privilege that you have, particularly the freedom to come in and out of the country, to earn large sums of money, to have access to world media?
Yes, I think it is first of all an obligation. Once you have a privilege, you have to pay for it. And I want to pay for it a decent price. I feel obliged to do many things. I feel obliged to behave in a certain way. I feel obliged not to forget about people who are not having these privileges. I feel obliged to come back to my country even if I'm very well off out of my country. It's one of the obligations. I made my latest film back in Poland, even if I had many other offers and I could have a more quiet life in other countries. At the same time I try to, how would I say, I try to not to disinform people whenever I'm interviewed, like now, which sometimes may have some unpleasant consequences to me. That's also part of the obligation. So I'm aware of that.
How are you regarded within Poland as a result of having this extraordinary freedom? Are there people who are jealous of you? Are you vilified for your privileges?
I haven't really felt it. Of course, some people are jealous and some people are nasty because of that. But I think most people rather they watch me very carefully and they want me to behave in a certain way. And they would read very carefully whatever I've said in public. And they watch closely my films I've done abroad to see if it is justified what I do. If I do it selfishly only for my sake of my own private career, or am I able, at least that's how I understand the pressure, am I able to express some part of our experience, of our common experience? Am I able to communicate it to other people? Then my role is justified. Then what I do makes sense. I was very proud of my colleague. It is easier to talk about my colleague. Mr. Vaida made in France a film Danton, which was a big success. And this film was possible only because Vaida lived through the experience of revolution much more closely than his French audience and his French producers. So he was able to tell something about the nature of revolution, which was, I think, far more, if it was done by another director, this was the moment when his privilege was justified, because he managed to bring something of his experience to the foreign audience. So he didn't do it only for himself.
What about the government's attitude towards you? Do they have one?
Oh yes, very strongly. I would say first of all, it's rather lenient, because they allow me to do what I do. We're not in very friendly terms, it is obvious. I have been very heavily criticized and attacked recently.
In what way?
Oh well, there was an instruction that all governmental press has to write very badly about my latest film, and the party organs were attacking me for my interviews and for my opinions. But that's natural. I don't complain. That is part of the game. It's unpleasant, but when it happens, it happens. There is a price to pay.
How were you aware that the instruction had been given?
Oh well, I've heard it.
How do you mean? But from
yes,
a government official or
yes.
A friend who heard it?
No. From the government official, there was a meeting in the Filmmakers Union when very high-ranking party functionaries said that he will assure that the press will destroy my film, and it did, because they have to write according to the instructions. It's not any insinuation; it is just a principle. The governmental press has to write what they are instructed to write, and they did.
Does that mean all press?
No. Well, there is a marginal, independent Catholic press, which is of totally different opinion, and there is an underground press.
So the government press is presumably the major daily newspapers?
Oh yes, of course, all newspapers, all dailies. There's only there are 2 Catholic weeklies which are independent. Of what I know, that's some monthlies, I think.
Do you resent that?
I have to live with it.
I'm sorry?
It is part of the general
You have to
landscape.
live with it.
Yes. So you can't resent selectively just one element.
Are you intimidated by it?
To a certain extent, I am.
Creatively?
Probably to a certain extent I am, but I'm also stimulated, so it has double effect.
How does it stimulate you?
Oh, because my relationship to the public, to people, is far more intense, because they expect from me something what they don't expect to see in the official press and from the official artists. They want my very personal testimony. They want from me something what I can really sign with my name and say, this is my opinion, this is my feeling, this is not what I was instructed.
You are probably aware that we haven't seen very many of your films out here at all.
Oh yes, of course I know.
So can you put into words then the themes that you have sought to convey through most of your films about Poland and the Polish people?
Well, of course they are specific, and film is always specific, but I think the themes as such are in a way universal. I'm fascinated by all manifestations of human freedom. And I understand freedom in a very different way than it is understood in Western, especially in Anglo-Saxon countries. For me, the freedom is, first of all, the inner problem of a human being. So freedom cannot be guaranteed, cannot be given, it cannot be voted. No Bill of Rights will give you freedom. It gives you something which is very precious and valuable, but you achieve your own freedom by hard work and in big pains. So when I see people who are politically free, but they are obsessed that they don't have a car which their neighbor has, I know that they lost their freedom or they never gained it. And this is the kind of freedom which interests me, the freedom when you have freedom of choice, when you have 2 different options and you are aware that choosing one option, you lose something and you gain something and you pay some price for it. It is a situation of most of my characters.
And it's evident in Year of the Pale Sun, obviously.
I think so, yes. But it was also in my other films, wherever I make them.
Yes. Do you prefer pork or veal? Jaka tuszonka?
Nie pamiętasz? Pani masz bardzo zgrabną nóżkę.
I want to talk to you specifically about Year of the Pale Sun, obviously. But firstly, I understand that there's a story connected with your beard and your entrances and exits.
I'm very unwilling to reveal this story. It was once printed somewhere in the press. It is one of these colorful but anecdotes, but they're so confusing that if you allow me just to drop it, I wouldn't sell it again. It is a story which is amusing to some people. I wanted to avoid contact with our own state-owned television. I was afraid that they might put my old interview and say I gave this interview right at the moment when state television was not very welcomed by most of the population. Most people refused to talk to it, and so on and so on. So I grown my beard. I don't feel at ease with it because it's not my style, but it does matter very little.
Okay. What is the climate now in Poland as opposed to, say, 3 or 4 years ago?
Well, it is now very tense. It's very dramatic. But
More so than 3 or 4 years ago?
Oh, yes, in a way, yes, because the horizon is much darker. It's far more difficult to find a satisfactory solution and realistic solution, politically and individually. Suppose, as a collectivity, are facing a very dramatic problem: how to survive untouched, how to survive remaining, keeping our integrity, what program to find for future development, what to teach our children, what to tell them, how should we live and behave in a given situation, how can we improve it. It's a very dramatic problem, and there is a lot of anger and a lot of madness on both sides. But I'm amazed rather by the opposite fact that in spite of all this tremendous conflict of interests, conflict of ideas, there is so little violence. There is no violence whatsoever from the side of our population. People are proud of the fact that they have not been involved in any kind of terrorist action. While in many countries where the conflicts are far more mild, people indulge themselves to use violence so easily. I think we believe, or at least a big part of Poles believes very deeply, that there are some moral values which may be preserved, and there are ways to resist which are not violent ways. Well, in fact, it's exactly what Peter Weir says in his Witness, and that's what I liked it about his film.
Is there something more that the West generally, and perhaps America specifically, could be doing for Poland?
Well, I don't know what can be done specifically. I would like to avoid any specifically political suggestions. I think I don't feel competent on that field. But what we desperately need, and I think there is a great majority of humanity which is suffering. There is a small minority which is suffering less. So, belonging to the suffering majority, I feel tremendous need of understanding. This is asking very much. It's far easier to ask for material help, for sentimental gestures, or for packages and medicines, and we need them too. But we need much more understanding, willingness to understand, and to stand firm for principles, for ideas, for values. We are very scared seeing how Western Europe in particular, how far is corrupt, up to what extent people accept hypocrisy, and people would just tolerate the rhetorics that does not correspond with reality. They are aware of it, and they admit it, and that's painful. And that makes it weak. Then we feel no moral support whatsoever. But I talk in very abstract terms. I don't want to translate it into any specific political ideas. It's very hard to find them. You know that the solidarity of moral support may be expressed in a very visible way, and it doesn't need to be purely political expression. But when you feel that everything is so elastic and so inconsistent, then you feel that you're lonely, you're abandoned, and that's what I would like to avoid.
Would you ever go back to Poland and live full-time there?
Well, it may happen any day. I am one foot in Poland. I think I want to continue this way. And I would like to be able to commute and go out, just because being outside of Poland and be talking to wider audiences. But I would never like to quit my country, however bad the situation is would be.
So the reason that you stay with one foot in Paris is simply so that you can straddle both and you have the freedom to come in and out. Yeah.
Exactly.
Can we talk a little bit about your pale son?
Mm-hmm.
What was the origin, the inspiration for the story?
Well, I travel a lot. I travel with my films, but it is just a vehicle to collect new experience, to meet people, to see people, to get to the places and to people which I would never have known working in my artistic ghetto. And I was always aware of that. I came to filmmaking relatively late. I had another background, I'm a scientist. And I know how much I can miss if I'm away from real life. So if I'm piloting my films and traveling around to some remote places around my country, and I do it in other countries as much as I can, I learn a lot. And this was one of these rewards. I met somebody whose story I've told in this film. I made acquaintance of the lady who had lived through similar experience. Then, of course, I added some elements of other stories I've heard, I've seen, I've read through myself. And that's how the film was conceived. It was many years ago, in fact, and it was in this lethal state for many years.
How many years ago?
Oh, it was like 7 or 8 years ago, I think. It was in mid-70s. And then I met Scott Wilson in America, the actor, and I was very impressed by him, and I thought I would like to write a part for him. And I thought this could be the part. I had an image. What kind of American could it be to make the story realistic and to bring some meaning to the story? He couldn't be just an average American, and Scott had something which inspired me. I thought it would be good.
What? I mean, can you...
Well, I think he has something what you feel by intuition. He has some sort of integrity, which, especially actors, but in America, few people have. He has some understanding of pain and suffering that most people don't have. I found this feeling amongst some of the Vietnam veterans. It was amazing to me that these people, I had immediate understanding, even before they told me where it comes from. They have been under fire, they have been under bombing. They had the same thoughts I had as a child. They thought maybe they will not come, they will never come back. They thought maybe this is our last day. Normal people in a safe society never think this way. I thought this way. I had to think this way, and they had. So it was something that was appealing to me. I thought that these people, and that's how I shaped the part of the film of this character.
So, but the kernel of the story came from a woman who had met an American, had the opportunity to leave the country.
Yes, but because of her mother, her old ill mother, she couldn't do it.
Right.
She decided not to do it, and the mother attempted to make a suicide. In life, she did not commit it, but she was caught trying to do it.
Right.
And that was the moment. So the situation was different, because once the daughter realized what kind of sacrifice the mother wanted to do, she had to make a decision. It was maybe the easy decision. Once she wanted to prevent her mother from doing that.
There are several questions that I felt were kind of unanswered by omission, if you like. For instance, I would have thought that an American working for the Commission would have been in several positions, I mean financial positions, a position of relative power, to be able to arrange for that woman, for Amelia, to leave the country.
Well, that's what he offered, but only to leave illegally.
To
leave illegally across the front.
But that's what I'm saying, that I would have thought...
That's what he offered.
No, but I thought he could... Surely the Americans could have... there could have been some kind of arrangement for her to leave freely.
No.
But was that Your fiction or
No, it
fact
was, it is fact
in history?
No, fact in history. Once the frontiers were established, they were well guarded, and it wouldn't be easy. They would have done it through the marriage, but marriage, to make it official, it would take at least 1 year or more.
As
Because her late husband has to be declared dead, and it takes time. So they knew that the time is running, and I wanted to exclude this possibility. So there was nothing else left, because to leave officially, it was already beginning. You know, the end of the
So
Second World
what
War.
year is it actually set?
Well,
what
it's
period?
46, 47.
46, 47.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's.
I couldn't tell whether it was the end of 45 or
I would
somewhere
say
in
rather end of 46.
the end of 46.
I would say
Right.
so. Yes. So already the beginning of the Cold War.
Yes. Why, apart from the emotional links with her mother and so on, why ultimately does she not take the opportunity to go?
Well, I keep it open. There are many possibilities. I think we may suspect that she didn't believe. You know, we have a certain amount of hope and energy in our life. And I know so many people who have been burned through their life, and they have in the critical moment, they cannot pull together enough hope to make the final decision. Maybe it is regrettable. It is regrettable that she did not believe in her love enough to jump, to make this dramatic step. It was also her rebellion, which I make it very clear, this rebellion against what the mother has done. It was the only way not to accept this gift, not to accept this sacrifice, to refuse it. Maybe it was emotional, she didn't have much time to think it over. When she thought it over 20 years, she is ready to go.
Why 20 years? What was the significance with 1964?
Well, this is one of the flaws of the film, probably, because it doesn't explain. I was doing it aiming on both audiences, and of course I understand my audience, and I make references to my audience knowledge. The 50s, time of the Cold War, was a time when all the links were cut, so there was no way to correspond. There was no way to know where she is, and it would take him a couple of years to trace her again, because it wasn't that easy. The time of Stalinism, the Cold War and McCarthy period, but mostly Cold War from our point of view, was a time when there was no way whatsoever to remain in touch with somebody across the frontier. The letters would never arrive, and she would be in big troubles, and she would have to deny that she knows the man, and so on and so on. So it is just a coincidence that 20 years later, maybe he managed to find her, and the legacy which is coming. I keep it open too. I say, maybe he's alive, maybe not. She has just to go to the consulate. He will tell her, is this more money a legacy, or is it just a gift of a living person? I wanted her to have some hope at the end. I wanted her to be able to reverse her decision, to be ready to go just at this time. She would be able to find him.
She would?
She wouldn't.
Why?
From Poland. There was no way for an old lady.
Yes, but given that the money was there must have been some connection.
No, once the money was there, it means that she was found.
Yes.
But by him. I just want to say that she had no real chance to have initiative, to look for him once he vanished.
Right.
But it was him who did.
But then you took it away from her.
Yes.
Why?
Oh, well, just because I don't believe in fairy tales.
Don't say anymore.
Oh, you're right. You know.
Don't say anymore. I don't want to spell it completely out for them. Yes. Well, now you answered the key questions that I lingered in my mind as I walked out of the cinema. I mean, it's not a happy film.
No.
At all.
But I insist it is optimistic, except that the notion of optimism and pessimism is so different in different cultures. I feel that it is pessimistic even when you make the most hilarious comedy, that you show the world, I can't make a good quote of Shakespeare, as an absurd play of an idiot. And however painful the life is, if it makes any sense, if there is anything consistent, if there are any values which may be preserved, it is a very optimistic message in a very sad film. I wouldn't like to make films which would be destructive. If I had a destructive message, I would probably quit and do something else. I don't need to infect other people. Even if I believed that absurdity is the utter truth about our existence, but I don't believe that. And that's why I think that there is no touch of pessimism. It is only a big touch of sadness. And that's two different things.
Tell me, where did you make the film?
I made it last year ago, just exactly a year ago in spring, in April, May last year, 64, in about 8 weeks shooting period in Poland, and then one scene.
Sorry, but whereabouts in Poland?
In Pomerania, in northern Poland. So the Vistula River is playing, supposedly the Oder River. And it was in several locations, well, not one location, it's a composed location, and in the studios in Lodz, where we have our major studios.
Yeah. Did you have any interference in making the film? I mean, did the government
they
censor the script? Or?
No, they had to approve the script, and it's kind of censorship, but there were some minor problems, but they were resolved, so I have no reason to complain.
So why, if they approved the script, did they then slam you in their media?
Listen, your question is a very common question, but it reflects a very wrong vision of the system. You think it is totally consistent, and it is you see it as totally unanimous. It is wrong. There are different people in this government. There are different people having power. They are playing games, and they are sometimes fighting ones against the other. It's not the same people who approved the script and who attacked me on it. They are different people. They are different powers. It is a very complicated and very contradictory and very conflicting kind of power.
So your film is in fact a small football in a game of...
Exactly.
Yes.
This is a very precise metaphor.
Krzysztof Zanussi is now 85 and he's a professor of European film at the European Graduate School in Saas-Fee, Switzerland, where he conducts a summer workshop. He's also a professor at the Krzysztof Kieślowski Film School of the University of Silesia in Katowice.